In 1962, Rachel Carson published Silent Spring. Before this book, most people had no word for the environment as we use it today. Nature seemed like a huge, indestructible backdrop that could absorb anything humans threw at it. After World War II, the chemical industry exploded with new inventions, especially pesticides like DDT. These chemicals were sold as miracles of human intelligence over nature. They promised a future free of insect borne disease and full of cheap food. Carson, a trained marine biologist, saw a terrifying blind spot. Humans were using weapons of mass destruction against the fabric of life without understanding how that fabric worked. Carson's main contribution was making ecology understandable to ordinary people. Ecology is the idea that nature is not a collection of separate parts. Instead, it is a fragile, deeply interwoven web of life. In this web, everything connects to everything else through invisible pathways. The soil, the water, fungi, earthworms, plants, birds, and humans form one single system. Heavy machines spray toxic chemicals onto elm leaves. The leaves fall and rot. Earthworms eat the rotting leaves and absorb the poison. In spring, robins return from migration and eat the earthworms. The robins die by the millions. By trying to save a tree leaf, humans silence the songbirds. Every chemical intervention ripples outward through food chains, soil layers, and water tables. The robin's death is not a separate tragedy, it is a warning about what is traveling back to us. The chemical industry uses friendly language. The word pesticide sounds neat and targeted. It suggests science has found a precise bullet that kills only the bad bugs while leaving everything else safe. Carson exposes this as a lie. Synthetic chemicals have no internal radar telling them to kill only certain insects. They are universal poisons. When an airplane sprays chemicals over a valley, it drops death on every living tissue. It kills the targeted beetle. It also kills the wasps that naturally eat the beetle. It poisons the bees that pollinate fruit trees. It seeps into the soil and kills the bacteria that make farming possible. Carson says we should stop calling these chemicals pesticides and start calling them biocides. Biocide means life killer. These chemicals are anti-life. Changing the vocabulary strips the industry of its moral authority. Chemical spraying is not pest control, it is a war against living systems. Carson explains two important concepts, bioaccumulation and biomagnification. First, bioaccumulation. New synthetic chemicals like DDT are entirely alien to nature. The planet has never seen them before. Nature does not know how to break them down. These chemicals dissolve in fat, not water. So animals cannot flush them out through sweat or urine. When an animal drinks contaminated water or eats contaminated food, the chemicals lodge permanently in fat tissues. Over months and years, the concentration inside the body grows higher. A small daily dose does not stay small, it accumulates into a large internal reservoir of poison. Second, biomagnification. When a small animal is eaten by a predator, the predator absorbs all the poison stored in its victim's fat. As you move up the food chain, the concentration multiplies. Water might contain a tiny trace of DDT that seems completely safe, but by the time that DDT passes through plankton, small fish, and into an eagle or a human, its concentration can be hundreds of thousands of times higher. Low invisible dosages are an illusion. The structure of the food chain guarantees that nature will concentrate our poisons and deliver them to our dinner plates and children's bodies. Beyond the science, Silent Spring is a work of philosophy. Carson attacks the Western belief in the control of nature. This mindset sees humans as masters standing outside nature. The earth is a treasure chest of resources for our convenience. If nature does something annoying, we have the right to crush it with brute force. Carson calls this idea arrogant. She says it comes from the Neanderthal age of biology. Humanity cannot conquer nature because humanity is part of nature. When we wage chemical war against the earth, we are turning weapons against our own life support systems. Our water, air, and cells are identical to the water, air, and cells we are poisoning. True scientific maturity does not mean dominating the earth, it means aligning our civilizations with the laws of natural systems. The goal is not control by understanding, not domination but partnership. Carson also proves that chemical warfare is stupid and self defeating. She introduces the principle of biological resistance. When you spray a massive dose of poison over a field, you expect to kill all the pests. But nature is dynamic. Due to natural genetic variation, out of every million insects, a tiny handful will have a random mutation that allows them to survive the poison. By spraying, you have accidentally performed artificial selection. You killed all the weak insects and left the field open for the resistant mutants to breed without competition. Because insects reproduce very fast, within a few generations, the entire field is crawling with super pests that are immune to that chemical. The farmer must then buy a newer, a more expensive, and more dangerous poison. Meanwhile, the original poison also killed the birds, spiders, ladybugs that naturally kept the pest population under control. By wiping out natural predators, humans create a vacuum that causes the pest population to explode worse than before. The chemical approach is an endless descending spiral. We must use increasingly terrible weapons just to stay in the same place. Carson is not a defeatist. She does not want humans to starve or abandon farming. She maps out an alternative. Biocentric control. Instead of spraying a valley with neurotoxins, we can introduce natural predators to keep pests in check. We can use insect sterilization techniques to reduce populations safely. We can deploy natural fungal diseases that target only specific pests. We can plant varied crops that naturally disrupt insect breeding habits. These methods require deep research, humility, and patience. They do not offer the instant gratification of a chemical spray, but they build stable long-term balance. They work with life instead of against it. Carson also connects ecology to political democracy. She asks, who decided that a small group of chemical executives and government bureaucrats had the right to poison the air, water, and backyards of millions of citizens without their consent? Citizens have a sacred right to be safe from corporate chemical contamination. An individual's right to live in a clean, unpoisoned world is more important than short term corporate profits. True democracy must give ordinary citizens the information and power to veto the reckless poisoning of their environment. We can reduce Silent Spring to four core insights. First, the world is a single web. You can never do just one thing in an ecosystem. A chemical dropped on an elm leaf will travel through soils and earthworms until it silences the robin. There is no way to throw things to. Everything stays somewhere in the web. Second, pesticides or biocides. These are universal, persistent poisons that accumulate in fat and amplify as they climb the food chain. The language of pest control hides the reality of life destruction. Third, conquest is an illusion. The control of nature is an arrogant fallacy. Nature always pushes back by evolving resistance, turning chemical shortcuts into evolutionary nightmares. You cannot win a war against the systems that keep you alive. Fourth, we need a different road. We must abandon the chemical crusade and embrace methods that work with life. This shift requires not just new technologies, but new politics and informed citizen democracy that protects the earth as our shared home.